Hello and welcome to my podcast in English number 12. I'm recording this on the 3rd of October 2019. It will go up in a few days. And today we're going to talk about my new newsletter series about the fundamentals of crochet, how a method for matching yarn to work two yarns together when you're not really sure about the weight of each of the yarns. I'm going to show a couple of new colors in my fingering weight merino, and let's just think a little bit at the end about how to have a quick win. So if this is not the first time, if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. And if you're new to me and to my YouTube channel, I'm Annette Petervi. I am a Swedish crochet and sometimes knit designer and teacher living in France, actually just outside the beautiful city of Lyon. I have a website where you can find my patterns and patterns from other independent designers, as well as yarn. I have a newsletter that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. I'm of course on Instagram and Facebook and here on YouTube, where you can subscribe to my channel if you enjoy its contents. I'm going to post links to all this, of course, just below in the description of the video. So my last podcast video actually was recorded like 3 weeks ago and came out last week. I generally record French and English on the same day, and then I release the French as soon as possible, and the English version, or not the English version, it's not a direct translation, it's a bit different, but a few days later, just so make it a bit less confusing. Of course, here on my YouTube channel, which is called Annette Betway in English, it's only content in English. And this autumn I have a lot of shows, and I had a show in the interval between this video and the previous one, and well, some things just fall through the cracks, and so that was the case with my latest videos. That's why it was delayed. The posting of it was delayed. And then I had planned to record again last week, but last week I had a terrible cold. It was just impossible. So you're going to hear today my voice is not the best. I'm still a bit feeling the consequences of my cold. So I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. We'll see. Because when I start rambling, we would never know how long it takes. So that was the story behind the delayed previous video. And today, so with the 3rd of October, it's a beautiful sunny day here in France, but I think we are finally moving into fall. We have had a couple of days of rain, much needed rain, because it has been extremely dry. So I hope to be able to dig in my garden again, because we have very heavy clay soil, and after a long, hot and not rainy summer, it's like concrete. And I've actually bought some plants, a vine plant, notably, that I have to plant before it dies. So I hope to be able tomorrow morning or so go out, dig a hole, stick in my plant, fill it up, water it, and hope for some more rain for it to thrive. Yeah, so now we have around 20 degrees in the daytime, much cooler in the morning, of course. And so it's French autumn, perhaps a traditional Swedish summer, because it used to be around 20 in summers in Sweden too, even if global warming has changed that a bit. So now let's get on to the contents, the real contents, not my blathering. So I want to say a few words about my new newsletter series. So if you don't know, I send out a newsletter. It used to be only monthly. In the coming months, or probably starting next year, I'm going to send it out perhaps every fortnight or so, because I do a lot of things, and a monthly newsletter just so humongous and long to read through now. So, but what will stay monthly is the crochet tutorial. So I work both in crochet and knitting, but I've done monthly crochet tutorials in my newsletter for more than 10 years. So I'm not going to stop now, neither am I going to put knitting tutorials in my newsletter. I reserve these for my YouTube channels and my blogs. So this autumn I wanted to kind of get back to basics and work on the fundamentals of crochet, because I think that they're often overlooked. And when you are a proficient crocheter, well, you might have forgotten a bit about the basics. So when you teach someone to crochet, you might go a bit quick on the basics. And also I realize every time I put up a newsletter about something that I think is important, but perhaps not as innovative or as advanced as the contents in other newsletters, well, I get a lot of positive comments. And it is important. So the first one is the September one that went out. The English version went out Tuesday, so technically 1st of October, but we'll say that that's good enough. And it was on the classic starting chain in crochet. So if you have a look, I'll post a link to the newsletter in the description below. But if you poke around a bit on this channel, you will see a few videos about the starting chain, because I also recorded 2 quick videos about the very, very basics, how to make your slip knot and how to work your starting chain. And then the real topic of the newsletter was the anatomy of the starting chain. So how is it built up? How can you work into this starting chain? And what does that mean? The different ways of working into it. It's a choice you make. How does it affect the look of your finished project? So I'm going to continue on this topic. So I'm going to cover crochet fundamentals. It's not only beginner content, because next time I'm going to talk about the alternatives to the classic starting chain. And that might be something that a pure beginner wants to leave to the side and get back to after a while. But I think it's very interesting for all of us to have a look at the fundamentals. And I also really want to encourage you to share this content about crochet fundamentals with people around you who might be interested in a specific issue of the newsletter, or in subscribing. Well, why not? But I think it's very interesting for a lot of people. It's so funny because the feedback I've gotten on this has been positive. So people are nice. If they don't think it's interesting, they don't say anything, which is the good way to do it, in my opinion. About the first 2 ways I show in the newsletter and in the video here on the channel on how to insert your hook in the starting chain. I got feedback from 2 people, one saying, oh yeah, it seems clear that I've always used the second way. It seems very evident to me. And the other person saying, hey, I never thought about that second way, and I've been crocheting for years. So hopefully there is something for everyone inside that. So I'll put, of course, the link. I'll put a link to this issue of the newsletter below, but if you want to keep up with them, don't hesitate to subscribe to my newsletter. There will never be a newsletter per day in your inbox because of me if you haven't specifically asked for it, and I whatever the legislation, I will not give out your email addresses to anyone because I don't really see the point. So I wanted to discuss a bit a method I used, and I talked about this in my last video, to try to match yarns when you have a mystery yarn. So I just recall what I'm talking about. This is, it's not quite finished. I thought I would finish yesterday evening, but I was so tired, I just had to go to bed. So there's like 1.5 round left. This is the first square in the Wrapped in Jamie crochet along. I can't really say I participate in the crochet along, but this is a kind of crochet that I'm not very used to. So this is a kind of occupational training project. This is educational for me. So I had this gray mystery yarn that I had bought on sale, and I mean, of course, I had a guess at the hook size needed when looking at this yarn, and I can more or less adapt that. But then I wanted a contrasting border. And how do you do that when you have no indication of the yardage or meterage of the yarn you're using? So I used a method that I learned, I think, in a Sentimental book years ago. So this is the yarn in the border is a fingering weight yarn, and I knew that was much thinner, much lighter weight than my gray mystery yarn. I'm working this with a 5mm hook. And of course the stitch pattern comes into play as well. So I wanted to know if one strand of the gray yarn would be about the same thickness as 2 strands of the pink yarn, because since the pink border is around the gray square, work directly onto it. If it's very different in thickness, it will either pull in or it will be all wavy around, and it will not work for any project. I have no idea what this is going to become, but it's going to be a mess and impossible to use. So what I did, so these are 2 strands, but that's just because I double it up to approach the thickness of this one. How do I evaluate if it's about the same or not? This one double and this one single. Well, I actually cross the yarns and fold them back over themselves. This means that I have doubled the yarns I'm potentially going to use, and this means that if I have a difference in weight or thickness between these yarns, I have doubled that one as well. So it will be easier to spot. And then I actually don't look at what I'm doing. I close my eyes and concentrate on the sensation of the yarn when I slide it between my index finger and my thumb. So of course there's a bump in the middle because where the yarns cross, but you can actually have a pretty good appreciation of the relative thicknesses of these 2 yarns. And these 2 felt like about the same thickness to me. And even if I haven't blocked this because I had to sleep, so it's not finished, I can clearly see that this is going to work. The border is not too tight, and it's not too loose. So it's not a perfect method, of course. This is not pure science, but it gives you a pretty good hint about if two yarns are going to work together or not. So I just want to show that because it's possible this way to combine different yarns in your stash, and perhaps know if you need to buy something to add to it to use up a lot of scrap yarns, what weight that should be. And I don't do them very often, but I really enjoy scrap projects. But for them to be successful and to be able to use a maximum quantity of things you have in your stash, especially if you have very old and big personal stash like mine, this, I think it can be useful. So, sorry, I have to take a drink because still a bit rusty in here. Okay, so that was the idea of trying to match yarn by feel. So important to double up the yarns because you will double the difference. And it's just sliding a single strand of each yarn through your hands will not make the same sensation. I have recently added in the web shop a few colors to my fingering weight merino range, which is a huge one for a little shop like mine, but I'm just crazy about colors, so what can I say? So this is a classical fingering weight yarn. It's super wash. It's spun in Italy for most of the colors because I used two providers to have the maximum yarn range. And this fingering weight merino is now available in white as well. So how come I didn't have it in white? Because actually I'm not a very black and white person. I like very light cream and very dark charcoal. But I accidentally actually ordered some white. And I think it's a good color for lots of things. And people have asked me if I have pure white. Now I have it. Another very light color, and it looks almost white like this. But if I put them together, you can definitely see the difference. This is a pearl gray color, very elegant and subtle, and interesting to combine with more vivid colors. I'm trying to not have too many gray colors. It's going so-so, but this is a new one. And some sunshine for your autumn with this yellow. On my screen, it doesn't look as sunny and beautiful as it is. I have called it daffodil. And actually, I can imagine a lot of nice combination between these three. Okay, I told you I was going to keep it short and sweet, and it's definitely going to be short anyhow because I can feel that my voice is not really holding up. But quick is good, so I just wanted to say a few words on the idea of a quick win. This is something my husband talks about when I am bogged down in long and tedious, not tedious, but long projects. Things take a lot of time. And as crocheters and sometimes knitters, we know this. Things take time to make. And sometimes you have other projects, personal or professional, and you just seem to work on everything for days and days and weeks and months and sometimes years, and you don't see progress. And when I complained about this, my husband said, you need a quick win. And I was discussing this with a friend the other night who was a bit exasperated by not having time to do stuff. And I said, well, perhaps you can transform some of your projects in small steps and get quick wins. So I have nothing very concrete to show you for this, because I'm thinking about it as well now that we move into autumn and winter, where I live, and also further north, days are getting shorter and shorter, and it's easy to think we're like entering a kind of long, grey, dark period of time. But perhaps we can enlighten this with some quick wins. And this is not on purpose, but what I'm wearing is actually a very small project. So this is a knitted chalette. It's La Vie en Rose. I kept the French title because there is actually no English equivalent. Designed by Éclat du Soleil. So on the website, this one is in pale pink and almost a nude color, and a little bit of dark gray. This one is in the wool finest yarn in a much more vivid color and just a hint of sunny yellow, just what we need right now, I think. So this was a short one, but that's what I had to say to you today. I'm trying to continue recording every fortnight. I have a very heavy show schedule ahead of me for the next 2 months, so it's going to be a bit depending on when I'm out and about and when I'm here and able to record. Don't hesitate to share your quick ideas for quick wins in the comments. Have you had a recent quick win in crochet? Are you planning on some quick wins, or perhaps you have something else in your daily life? Can be a quick win, just a small short project that you can finish in a day and makes you feel like you're moving forward. So let's do that. Have a great time. I'll be back talking to you soon. Bye bye.